content for brands on YouTube. We're going to come up with some different types of content for different brands. They didn't ask us to do this. We're just going to do this anyway. I'm here with Shelly, who's remote today. Hello, Shelly Saves the Day.
Hello, hello. Good to see everyone.
Good to see you. And I'm here with Gwen Miller from Hearst. Welcome, Gwen.
Who never leaves her apartment.
she, she's there, she's here, she's everywhere. She's really present digitally, and that's all that needs to happen. Now, today I thought we would throw around some just specific brands or types of products, and we would just invent content that we want to see from them. I have no idea how this is going to go. No idea whatsoever, but I thought we would just brainstorm, and you can throw out some topics from the chat if you like. But here we go. My first content that I would like to see from the brand is, I'm going to go with Enterprise Rent-A-Car. So if you were doing, if you wanted to do content that would get people, again, the premise is, how do you get people coming back and again to see your content on a channel? Enterprise Rent-A-Car, Shelly Saves the Day. What type of content would you suggest that they do? We're just totally spitballing things here.
One thing I think that they could do is the whole, when you think of enterprise or rent a car, it's things like, oh, my car's in the shop, or you think of something more so like something boring like travel. And so I think it would be really fun if they ran an entire campaign about what you do when you're like living life like the other half lives or something. And so it could be a new car every week, or like cars that you would never usually drive in real life. And so those types of things would be like a lot of fun, because a lot of the time renting a car isn't fun. So have that kind of like lifestyle in mind where you're like, oh, you went up to Malibu for the weekend and you rented a convertible and you went around to all of the open houses and the car, you know, in the homes that you can't afford, that type of thing, like to encourage people to like do it for fun, even if they're local.
And we have 30-day reviews makes a suggestion from the comments area that says they could find a creator in each state and have them use a vehicle to go where their favorite places are, explore their states. So that's a great idea from 30-day reviews, is that, hey, why not go places? Because renting a car is about going places.
This reminds me, Dane, of what one of the classic advertising campaigns of all time, which is what Michelin did with their Michelin star ratings. Most people don't associate that the Michelin star ratings are from the tire company.
Right.
A tire company is telling you about the best restaurants in the world, but it started out as this promotional campaign, right? Where they're like, okay, what do you do with tires? You're going to go places. Let's find like reasons for people to drive in their cars a lot and go far distances to go to, like, this is worth the drive. It's a 5-star restaurant. Take the 3-hour, trip to see this, to go eat this food. And it's just mind blowing to me that now we don't even know that association. Michelin star does not connote tires for us, but that's what it started out doing. And that does seem something similar here. And if you think now, like, what are the types of things that people would travel to see that they need to rent a car? Like, I think it should be places where it's not the big cities, because there you just take an Uber, right? Like, it can't be places with great public transportation. So what are those like rural areas, like those gems out in the middle of nowhere that you'd have to rent a car and drive to? That I think could be a nice sweet spot. They could be like the Red Bull of obscure travel content.
And I want to mention that Shelly is remote today, and we're not sure exactly if she'll be able to do it for the full hour. And a lot of you are saying hello to Shelly in the comments. I don't know, Shelly, if you're seeing them all, but I just want to say, if Shelly doesn't say hi, it's not because she doesn't like you. It's because she's remote today. But
yes, I'm on the phone, so I don't have the window that has like all of any of the chat or anything like that.
We'll just assume that everyone has said hello to Shelly. But and if you want to ask Shelly a question, just post it in the comments and I will repeat it. But I believe in tutorials that help people with the types of services that you help people with, but not that actually sell your service. So one type of tutorial I invented myself, and I don't know if you guys have ever done this, but you return a rental car and they make you pay for the gas, right? And how do you know how much gas you should put in before you return it? You know, you might be able to save 20, 30. Now in this world, you might be able to save $50 just by being able to return the right amount of gas. So what do I do? Here's a tutorial that I do. And this is just one of many tutorials that people could do. But I actually Google the model of the car I'm using, and I say how many gallons in that car. And then I divide by quarter tanks or eighths of tanks. So I divide by 8, and I was like, oh, they said I had 3/8 of a tank. I'm going to multiply that. And so now I have this formula for how much gas to return in the car. So I save myself $20, $30, $50. There's a whole bunch of other things you can do, like knowing how far you should reserve in advance, or knowing what cities are going to be more impacted than others, or knowing how do you start a car if the key fob runs out, right? Bet you guys don't know that. You guys know how to start a car if your key fob runs out, but it's a hybrid car, for instance?
I'm not fancy enough to have that reason of a car.
So what you do is if the battery runs out, you hold it right next to that start button. If you have like a Toyota or a Lexus or something like that, you just hold it right next to it, even if the car fab is out of battery. Wow, that saves everyone just a ton of trouble, right? Someone says, hey, don't you get the rental with a full tank? Well, sometimes, depending on what you rent, they don't always, Enterprise, for instance, I've rented from them a lot. They just sort of like, hey, you fill it up for us. But so that's one. It's great content. So that's we've covered that type of content. All right. So my next brand, and anyone can shout out from the chat, or if you guys have another idea for content. My next topic is Calendly software. A lot of people use Calendly. If you ran the zoo, what kind of content would you make for Calendly that would get people coming back again and again and again every week? Shelley saves the day.
Well, I think a couple of things. People don't understand how to integrate it with like Google Calendar. And so how to accept appointments, how to accept payment before appointments, how to have a cancellation policy, how to have something where it's like appointment reminders, like whether that's text. If you wanted to do something like have them fill out a form beforehand and actually have that be automated so that they fill out like an intake or a questionnaire form. And so I think there's a lot of things you can do with Calendly, including like a lot of people don't know how to set that all up. So it could be an entire YouTube help tutorial channel about how to integrate with these services, but make sure it's all seamless. So how to, use Calendly. It looks different on your phone versus in the web browser. So, I mean, I feel like there's a lot that you could be doing with something like that.
Mm-hmm. And Gwen Miller, if you were suggesting to Calendly to make content, what would you say?
Oh, I would go all in on productivity content.
Uh-huh.
Like if you think about who is the user that really Calendly is prime for, it's those people who are like me, obsessed with like productivity and the tools for productivity. So you could definitely see how you could do videos around how to do task management correctly, and or how to how to space out your calendar so you have blocks for doing work, like how to block out your calendar. And a lot of these things you could see how naturally Calendly would be a good fit in terms of being an addition to these processes. But it really is being like, hey, are you anal retentive like the rest of us? Do you want to have your life in more control and be able to get stuff done more efficiently? Like, we have the content that will help you with that. And oh, guess what? Calendly can help you with that too.
And I think that
I don't even know if it's for people who are like very anal retentive about their calendar. I think it's even for people who are just like, I need something. And it's like, it's really easy to set up, and it's kind of fairly intuitive when it comes to like, oh, this thing is 55 minutes. I should probably build in a 5-minute buffer before other things. So it like even walks you through like hand holding some of that kind of stuff, where I feel like sometimes it's stuff that people wouldn't even think about, or like do you want us to build in a 25% buffer of like busy time to make it look like your calendar is more full? And that's not something that some people think about. So I think it even kind of um, is for the person who's a little bit clueless and just starting out, as well as up through the person that is a little bit more like everything is calendar blocked and everything is completely a certain way.
But you have to at least be interested in potentially heading that direction. There's certain people I know that are just like, I just want to fly by the seat of my pants. Like, this is the person who at least wants to attempt to make their life more sustainable.
And, I know a lot of people who are just totally all day, they're booked in meetings and can't do anything. And they have people that get permission to schedule them into meetings, even if they don't want to be in those meetings. And I think that there should be some sort of understanding on how to get your peers and direct reports to buy into the idea that there has to be time when you can say, I'm not in a meeting. I'm just not going to be in your meeting, and how to refuse being in a meeting, but in a really polite way, or this type of corporate
I
politics.
just make up meetings. I'm in a meeting. My meeting's with myself. I got work to do, people. Like, I block it out.
Right. And
Oh,
that's
but
one way too.
Dane, so someone's asking what Calendly is. So maybe we should
Great.
make sure we explain each of these brands when we're
Good.
talking
Okay.
about them.
Great. So Calendly is a service that I use a lot to have people book meetings with me. So Calendly, like calendar, except LY. And it is a service that you connect with your calendar, and it syncs with your calendar and says, here's the types of times Dane's available for these kinds of meetings. And then here's the times when you can't book something with him because he's blocked. And so it's a sort of a handshake. And I actually use it for scheduling paid calls, where it handshakes Zoom to Calendly to PayPal. Someone goes to talktodane.today, books a call with me. They actually have to pay before the get scheduled. And then it might send them out like a questionnaire that says, great, now we're meeting, now you've paid, you've booked this time, let me ask you some questions. So it's really great at handshaking a lot of things. But yeah, I think ways of making meetings shorter and more productive, and refusing meetings, or making what I did a lot over the last couple of years. I just made 30-minute coffee meetings with someone just to say hi when you couldn't do that in person. Okay, so and all that type of content, we think could be the type of thing that people could be excited about returning to. And let's talk also about how many people we might have, what the format of it might be. Would it be a screen share? Would it be people acting it out? That type of thing. So let's do a brand that what Gwen, you had something to say?
No, I was excited about the next thing.
Okay, a brand people talk about all the time, Capital One credit cards. They are always advertising something funny, but what if they did something different on a YouTube channel? People don't really come back to see ads so much on YouTube channels, no matter how funny they are. What is something we could get them to come back again and again? I'll start with Gwen Miller this time. Gwen, credit card debt, I don't know, what?
Yeah, or they could go the approach of like, who really needs credit cards to kind of facilitate. And, like a good one in this category is always small business. Mm-hmm. So like, what do you need to know about, like running a small business, and like purchasing things and buying things, and how do you set that up? You could really see a customer base growing from that, of really looking at like how you would actually utilize these type of tools as a part of growing your small business.
And Shelley Saves the Day, how would you do it?
I think there's a couple of groups that you can go after. So one could be small business and people who are looking to build business credit, which is different. Do you have a business account, and do you have all of that set up? The other, I think, that is grossly underserved sometime is that kid first going to college, and what they get is like inundated on campus with, here's a free sweatshirt if you apply for this credit card, and they don't know any better. So I feel like it's almost like there needs to be a life skills 101, like there used to be for home ec, and it would be like how to handle credit responsibly and how to have a good credit score once you get out of college, and what do you need credit scores for? Could you be denied a loan or a job or employment, anything like that because of your failure to do this, or when is it not bad to have a credit card, and how do you make the most of a reward system, and how do you even choose one that has rewards? Is an annual fee always a bad thing, or what does it actually mean when you have an APR, or what is a late fee, or what is a recurring billing cycle? I mean, and then the different types of credit card, whether it's like revolving debt, and if it's something like installment loans, and do you know the difference? And like by the time that they graduate from college, a lot of kids could already have ruined credit, and then they can't get jobs, they can't get apartments, and their insurance is then going through the roof. So if you think about, like, it's really setting them up for like life. And when you have an institution that is about credit education and making sure that people are set up for the rest of their life, and hopefully that like reward and loyalty is their patronage for the rest of their adult life. So that's how I would kind of go about it, is because there's a lot of kids that are like grossly miseducated, or not educated, just like they don't have any clue about credit and how it can affect them for the rest of their lives. So I feel like that could be a really easy target demographic to also go after, because those kids are on YouTube and TikTok and all of these sites where they could go in and really make very quick, short snippets of educational content to increase awareness about that type of stuff.
Yeah, and I think that also just sort of general financial education, like, what is investing? How do you, how much money should you have saved when you're renting an apartment? How much, if you make X amount, how much should you allot for spending in your apartment? Because a lot of places, are very expensive to rent, particularly in college towns. So people think about that type of thing. How do you make a budget? How do you keep to a budget? How do you start thinking about what types of investments you want to make over your life so that you can, do better in life? These types of things are vastly overlooked in our educational system, and they come in super handy when you're trying to run a life. So I think we're there. I think, Gwen, did you say something on this topic yet?
Mm-hmm.
You just did.
I was
good.
the small business
Okay, good.
finance stuff.
Okay. Gwen and I are both wearing glasses. I don't think either are Warby Parker eyeglasses, but that's a good brand. So what types of things might Warby Parker, that makes eyeglasses and sells them online in really neat styles, and they were sort of one of the first big brands to really make themselves known as an online brand. What would Warby Parker, we'll start with? Well, let's why don't I start with this? Okay, so what types of glasses do you need for what? So it took me a long time actually to learn that as a YouTuber, I needed to have different glasses. Nobody actually said this, because usually what they give you when you go to the glasses place, they give you the kind that is, it's for looking distance here and it's for reading here. But most of what I do is reading something that's 2 feet away, which is my laptop or my iPhone. And it's not set up for that. And I didn't realize that I was looking down my nose to look at the camera because I couldn't see it. So I got what's called, I guess it's called computer glasses. It's just a different type of prescription. But that's just one thing. Like, how do you know which prescription to use for what purpose? I think that's a really interesting type of tutorial. So how to use glasses. It may be stupid, like you put them on, right? But actually, I learned, not so easy. So I'll go to Shelley next. Shelley, what type of content should Warby Parker eyeglasses do?
I think one thing that people forget is you need like sunglasses. And a lot of the time you may need sunglasses that have prescription in them. And so people just forget. And so they end up going outside and just getting these gas station sunglasses, and it's like don't forget, like wherever you may be living, I think sunglasses is like a really good one. Reading glasses, like you were saying, glasses meant for computer, social media, blue light, if you believe in that type of thing. Those are all things, but I think Warby Parker also has this reputation for being this like millennial hipster kind of thing, and they might need some sort of rebranding of like not just the hipsters glasses, and whether it is something like bifocals or it is like sunglasses or it is something else. I think they have their own identity like pigeonholed into something that's almost disdainful in a way for some people, and they need to like have their eyes open to, or not just, you know, for the kids that like, like I don't know, I feel like they need almost a little bit like a rebrand.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Warby Parker needs to open their eyes. Very good. And we have Discord for Creators says computer glasses are a real thing, and optometrists often don't understand that progressives ain't gonna cut it for screen workers. Wait, who's not a screen worker? Who, who tell me a profession that doesn't use a screen, like a boxer? I don't really know. Like, not a lot of professions anymore don't use a screen in some way. Gwen Miller, what's your content for Warby Parker eyeglasses?
I'm gonna lean into the millennial hipster vibe, and again, they'll be the Red Bull for hipster street art. And you can see where you have the traveling glasses, where you have a host who's always wearing a different piece of a different Warby Parker's glasses, going and like finding the best like street arts, and you'd always like match the glasses to like the vibe of the street arts, and you can kind of like, you know, what is like how you see the colors and all these things, but it's like this, you know, you get the aspect of that hipster art thing, and then because they're also big on like their glasses, the glasses are cool, they aren't just your grandpa's glasses, right? And if they could like age that down to Gen Z artists, maybe they can start getting the Gen Z not just be known as the millennial middle-aged as we are now. The millennials are hitting middle age of 40 instead being like for the 20-year-old again.
You know what I could see also is I could see sort of like, I don't know, like a quiz or game show where people guess which frame, which shape frame, not necessarily the color, but looks best on some people's face, because every different face, a different frame, I think looks better and some look not as good. So you could have people vote on the website or whatever, hey, you know, which one do people like? And then you could have the video sort of reveals it, and people are sort of waiting to see which one is the victor, you know, which between A and B, which is it? And then the survey says this, which one between these ones, survey says this. So I think that could be enjoyable because you want to guess. You feel like you're part of it by guessing. All right, so we've covered that one. All right, let's go to something totally, you're like, why should they even do a YouTube video? Just like a local dry cleaner, all right? So the local dry cleaner says, I'm going to do YouTube. What type of content should they do? Should it be guess this stain? Or is it, you know, here's how you take care of this types of fabrics? Now, people are dressing a lot more casually these days, and dry cleaners need to have more business. So how could they do this to get more business? Shelly saves the day. What would your local dry cleaner, Smith's Dry Cleaner, do as a YouTube channel?
Well, I think there's a few things. I mean, if you ever notice, they have different detailing and service. So everything, some of them will even do like laundry, pressing, all of that, and repairs. But sometimes you have different things like, you never know why cleaning a bridal gown is so expensive. So almost having people go through the process of what that looks like. Why does it cost so much? Or why is a leather jacket so much more expensive? What happens when you just throw into the dryer things that are dry clean only? Like, what happens to these fabrics? And like, let people know, or like, this is how you get out some of these things. This is why you can't do this at home. This is why your, you know, comforter says dry clean only, and what they mean by that, or what's happening when you decide to just throw it in the washing machine yourself. And so I feel like it's almost a cautionary tale of what could happen to your clothes or your fabrics, or like why it's worth going to a dry cleaner, what the process is actually like, and how it actually extends the longevity of your clothes. Because a lot of people are starting to get over fast fashion, and they like things that are either like thrifted or reused or recycled, and they want to know, like, sometimes now people are buying less but at higher quality. So it's like, do I really need to spend extra for dry cleaning? You're like, if you're of that mentality of buying less and keeping it for longer, this is why you do that and extend that longevity. So I feel like why does it always take so long? Or like, here's the dance of magical stains and the shirts that go around. I mean, I feel like there's things you could do to make it fun, but people really don't know. It's kind of like this black box of like, I drop it off, I don't know what happens, I pick it up. And I think it might be fun to kind of like pull back that curtain and let people know what it's really like.
Gwen Miller, anything related to some trends like upcycling or anything like that?
I would go ASMR here on this one, Dane.
Oh, really?
So, if you remember in a past episode of this broadcast, I talked about a rug company that just literally does like 20-minute ASMR videos of them like cleaning like really old rugs. Like, here is a 50-year-old rug that has never been cleaned. And it's just ASMR of them like scrubbing that thing for 20 minutes. And you see it every cycle they do of their process. And it's interesting because you get to see how the cycle works, right? But really, you're there for the sounds and the sights and just the satisfaction. You get to see it suddenly become pristine and beautiful at the end. I think you could do that same thing with like stains and old clothing. Like, this is a look at this, vintage outfit from the 60s. We're going to make it look, sparkling brand new. And you go through the entire process, but really designed as almost an art piece of ASMR. And the end, you get like this beautiful classic outfit, totally redone to its, current glory. And then, yeah, I would totally go to that dry cleaners if they can do that.
I think you could also do like an A-B, like, we purposefully messed up this, blouse or whatever it is, this top. And you could say, all right, we got this same top and we, did it the right way and the wrong way. And how did it come out? We threw it in the dryer. No, you shouldn't throw it in the dryer. And there could be a lot of emotion because you're reading the labels and there's this right way and this wrong way that we've all been told by our moms growing up. Don't put it in there. Sort the colors, whatever the thing is. And then you break the rules and people are, no. I want to read some comments that people have made. Someone was talking about the Warby Parker. If your online video set is the new business suit, our branded glasses the ultimate accessory. I have a different color of glasses for each of my brands. Oh, that's interesting. Don't at me, says Discord for Creators. And 30-day review says, showing stain removal, specialty fabric cleaning, showing parents dropping off 10 loads of laundry when they're spending time with their kids instead of doing the laundry. That's interesting. Go into the science of the chemicals and processes they use. That's a little bit, people don't want to know sometimes about all the chemicals that go in. And maybe some dry cleaners, or they call themselves green dry cleaners, why they're doing some things differently. And somebody said, Pixel Pia said, what your dry cleaner never tells you.
Yeah, like dry cleaner, like horror stories, or like the worst stains I've ever seen, or like that kind of would be kind of magical.
Yeah.
The worst stains I've ever seen. Okay, so my next brand is Right Guard underarm deodorant. It's been around forever. They advertise on different sports, stuff. But you're like, everyone knows, you just take it, you put it on or you don't, and that's pretty much it. But is there something else that we could create content that people don't just generally come back to see ads. They might once in a while say, oh, I saw that ad on the Super Bowl or on the football game, but they're not coming back generally because you did a funny or interesting ad. But what about content? What type of content could they create that could get me coming back again and again? Right Guard underarm deodorant, Shelly saves the day. What might they do? I know this may be tough.
Sometimes people actually have other ways to use things, and even if they think it's right or wrong. So,
Uh-huh.
some people use like deodorant and they put it like on the bottom soles of their feet, or they put it like we have like runners and such that'll put like in between their thighs so that their shorts when they're running they don't
Right.
chafe, and it's like leg protection. So they use like things that aren't intended necessarily for that body area in different ways. So stuff like that. Even like I've seen people where they'll take the clear gel and they'll put it across their forehead because they're just really big sweaters, and they won't do it with like the sticks that are like more white, but they'll do it with a clear gel underneath like their makeup because they're just like
Interesting.
sometimes like underneath hot lights or different things like that. So I've seen people like do stuff like that. So I mean, sometimes if people don't know or they do already know how to use it, maybe it's just like opening their eyes to have them use it in different ways. Maybe someone is self-conscious about that their hands are always like clammy and sweaty, and what if they put the thing on their hands or something like that? Like you would never know. Maybe it's a
And
tip.
in that movie Miss Congeniality, he uses a spray so that her dress doesn't cling. I think it's an
Well, it's
underarm deodorant.
hairspray on their
Oh,
booties
it's
so
hairspray.
yeah, so that it doesn't ride up. But they also used like preparation H, like hemorrhoid cream, because it's a tightening as an under eye cream to like remove circles. So like these little things like that. I remember when Nikki Tutorials, who is a beauty YouTuber, she made Nivea After Skin Balm Shave for Men like sell out because she was saying there were certain ingredients in it that were very similar to a high-end expensive makeup primer. So all these girls were going out, buying it, slathering it on their face, and using it as a primer. So I mean,
That's
there's things like that
amazing.
where, yeah, and they, it was literally just like sold out everywhere. You could not find it because that's what people were using it for.
I can see just like the entire like hygiene category that they could kind of become the go-to tips and tricks on like how do you like, up your hygiene game to the next level. And some of that has to do with the product and some of it may not, but it all works together to make you clean, smelling fresh.
And reading from some comments here, um, 30-day review says show is not just for it's not just for sports. Interview people about their jobs and tie in why they use Right Guard. I found deodorant helps with athlete's foot. No joke. Okay, TMI. Thank you very much. And and then Mark Sequence says, "What's all this then?" And it came right in the middle of the stream. Clearly, Pixelpia. They should do a game show. Can you smell who is wearing this brand blindfolded? Annette Portelaine says, hello, Shelly, Dane, and Gwen. Hello. And Mark says, I just found out that John Prosser is a cologne and fragrance connoisseur. I bet he'd figure it out. Pour Latin. Pour la Latin. Okay, so next topic is, all right, Hiscox Business Insurance for Startups and Small Businesses. So if you were making content for startups and small businesses and you were an insurance company that did this, what types of content would you make to get people coming back every week that they were just like, wow, I would love to see this every week? So we'll start with Gwen Miller. Gwen, you're in
I
charge of the
mean,
content. What do you say?
geez, like I've looked at this sort of stuff. There's just it's so complex. Like even if it's the smallest business, there's so much that has to go into that those of us who just have full-time jobs, it's mind-boggling in this complexity. And can you see a channel that simplifies all that? Like here's every week you get a new video of like we're gonna walk you step by step through the different things you need to know and how to find specific information for your state. So have you thought about you need to register with the city for a business license? You need to, you need to, and one of those steps is going to be getting insurance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's like how inventory, how does that work? Like how you need to be finding yourself a tax accountant. Here's some things you should look for in a qualified tax accountant. Like just every step of the process, because it's so dense that I would come back every single week for that.
All right. And Shelley saves the day. Hiscox Business Insurance, you're in charge of their content today. Let's make a YouTube channel. What gets people coming back again and again?
You got to make insurance sexy, which is hard. It's not always the easiest. It's like, taxes, but it's one of those things that's like toilet paper. You hate to be without it when you need it. Insurance is one of those, you don't know you need it until you actually have to use it, unfortunately, or you're trying to use it and you find out whatever you need, it wasn't covered. And I feel like there's so many of these horror stories that happen of like, I was at a beauty event and there's a company called Kula and they make high-end skin protection, SPF and whatnot. And the guy that started, kind of this California surfer dude, his warehouse burnt down about a month before they were going to start shipping out products.
Oh,
And so you can imagine it's just pallets and pallets of all finished product. And like, what would you do? Would that actually bankrupt you? How would you go out and order more stuff when a lot of the stuff might have been like PO orders that weren't going to get fulfilled until they get delivered and out there? Or like, how do you replace that stuff? How do you start? And would that bankrupt you? Would you start over? So even horror stories, something like that, I think are like really important to be like, what would you do if this kind of thing happened? And you could almost have like different things that have happened, like weird stories in insurance, like I think farmers insurance does that, where it's like, oh, the Great Squirrel Fire of 1986, blah, blah, blah. We covered it. We found out. And those types of things are like fascinating because you just don't even think about them sometimes, about how they kind of come in. But I think you could also bring in all of the people who had insurance and got to use the insurance and how that changed their life or how they didn't close their business. And you could also have people who didn't have insurance who had to learn the hard way afterwards. Like, what does that mean? How much did they pay? How much would a policy have cost to actually implement that would have covered them? Even something like that, like a before and after, one who had insurance, who went through something similar, one who didn't, and what the differences are. So you have this real A/B comparison of both of these companies were going to launch. Both of them had fires. This one had their property and everything covered, and this one they had to pay out of pocket and redo it all again. Even something like that is simple and like truthful, I think could be super educational for a lot of people. But to Gwen's point too, everything from, when are you insuring it? And is it when insured up until delivery at the person's house? What if it gets damaged in transit? What kind of insurance does that have if it's like traveling around? Or what happens when it goes international, or if the ingredients are from someplace international? Not only are there tax implications, but there's insurance implications for those too. Because what happens if it's carcinogen and it blows up in transit? Are you responsible for that, or is it the shipping service? So I mean, there's a lot of things, like Gwen was saying, that you would need to think about in sequential order. And sometimes you need someone like, you don't know, until you have an accountant, like how important some of the number stuff is. You don't know until you have insurance, when you're talking about whatever is ingoing in your business, what even that umbrella might even look like for your policy.
And I think it could be fun too to just go the opposite way, to have a whole series of the opposite way. This a series called "We Ain't Gonna Cover That," and just like you spill coffee on your paper and you were about to write, "We can't do anything about that. Get a better coffee mug," But if you do need this, we can cover this, and all sorts of things like life can go wrong. You tripped and you were on your way to a meeting and you fell and you broke your nose. We ain't going to cover that. Get some health insurance. What we cover is this. So things that could go wrong that we're not going to cover, but we will help you get through it anyway, even though we're not paying for it. Here's a tip, tie your shoelaces before you go out the door, things like that. And I think could be fun. Gwen Miller, do you have any topics, any brands that come to mind right now that you think we should talk about? Oh, you're muted, I think.
Why don't we talk about a brand that had some of the most classic um, campaigns in the past? How do we update this for kind of 2022? Let's talk about Subaru, right?
Okay.
And Subaru is one of the classic ones that has really figured out its Targo demo, like pretty, like it kind of was like, okay, back in the 90s, it was like, all right, we have like teachers, we have IT, and then we have the lesbian community, and they went after all of them. Like, who was the new like Subaru target, and how would we do a campaign for them?
All right. Sounds good. Let's see. I am gonna go. Shelly, do you have something, or I'll go if you don't have anything yet?
Well, I think Subaru does have a little bit of that. They're entrenched in certain communities, we'll say, right? As Gwen has already mentioned a few of them. I think it might be fun to have like not Subaru's Gone Wild, but Subaru on the weekend. You know, like you have this
Yeah.
other, this other personality because like a lot of us have that yin and yang of the personalities, and so you can be like, yeah, you could be a IT tech person right now, but you know on the weekend you're like in the death metal band or something, something like that, where it's like it's okay to have a different type of vehicle or a different mood or something like that. I remember when Kia did a rebrand, and people kept being like, that's a Kia or like that's a Chrysler or that's a
Right.
Oldsmobile. And so it would almost be like head turning in a way to be like what you think Subaru is, and then it would be like, but here's the new Subaru as well, or like for when you're ready to like turn around, upgrade, or it's the weekend, you can kind of go into a different type of mentality with it.
I like that.
I would love to like see what's in someone's Subaru. So, it's weekend, we're carrying two dogs, we're carrying four people, we're carrying two people, we're carrying camping gear, we're carrying stuff from the farmer's market. So, sort of like, yeah, we can carry that, something like that, but the types of things that a Subaru would carry would be different than what a GMC truck carried. So that would be help me identify my niche market that really celebrates Subaru by just seeing what the types of stuff they're carrying around.
I like that. I like that. I might do some sort of spin on the van life, but it's like car camping with Subaru, where you're like following Gen Zers as they car camp across the country in their Subarus and all the stuff they're able. It's almost like I flip through the IKEA catalog to see how they like fit so much stuff into those small spaces. I find it fascinating. And I think you could do the same with the Subaru, which is just like how much you can actually fit in a Subaru and how much you can kind of like live in these cars almost, except in a more posh, I'm fancy van lifing across the country rather than homeless vibe, of course. But like I think you could really get into that trend with like you don't need a van, you can do this in a Subaru.
So I think this has been a really successful experiment. I had no idea how this was going to go, but I really had fun doing this. And so if you want us to talk about other brands in the future, we will do this again because I think this was a success. So tweet at us. We'll start with Gwen Miller. How would someone tweet at you, Gwen Miller?
My handle is Gwen I am, so it's my first name and then the letter I and the letter M. Yeah, or you can probably search Gwen Miller and I pop up.
Gwen has a secret YouTube channel that is not announced yet. It's coming at some point in the
It's
future.
coming. It's going to be all about analytics.
And we are going to
Ooh.
announce it here. All about YouTube analytics. I'm at Dane Golden. And Shelly, what is your handle on and preferred social media platform?
You can come find me on Twitter under Shelly Saves the.
Shelly Saves the. I'm at Dane Golden. And until next week, here's to helping you help your customers through video.